I'm going to show you what happened in the top of the table clash from round 9 between Poland and the USA. Going into this round, the United States were a point clear of the field, but Poland having an excellent tournament so far. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 3 extracts from 3 of the games, and that'll give you kind of an overview of what happened in this match. So first of all, the game on board 4 between Sam Shankland and Jacek Tomczak from Poland. Shankland had an excellent opening, and he managed to transpose into an endgame where he had a clear extra pawn. We joined the game after 30 moves. Shankland has just played the pawn to g6, fixing that pawn on g7. And, well, if black sits there, he's lost, no doubt about it. So Tomczak broke out and he wanted to exchange pawns. It's his only chance. Now, we'll come back to this position a little later. Let me first show you what happened in the game. Shankland exchanged and went for the g-pawn. Now if black falls back passively, he's definitely lost. So Tomczak exchanged pawns. Now this allowed Shankland to put a pawn on the 7th rank. That means the rook is tied to the g-file, tied to defending there. But it's also in some ways very active, and now Tomczak played his only chance. He played rook g1, excellent move. Now that prevents white's king from emerging here. If that king can reach the king side to support the pawn, black is completely lost. But that rook g1 prevents the king coming out. Now Shankland tried to shake things up a bit with c4. If that pawn's taken, then that king might emerge and head over here, one way or another. But another excellent move from Tomczak, d4. And I'm sure that Shankland basically underestimated this defense. He must have assumed that he could break through. Well, he tried to shake things up a bit, but black held firm. He advanced the king, but there was nothing doing here, so that stops the king coming to c4. King came back again. And now again, threat to bring out the king across to the king side, but no. Rook g1 stops that, and basically Sam shuffled around for a bit but could get nowhere at all. Black held firm, basically using exactly the same defense as we've already seen. And after a bit, he basically just acquiesced to the exchange of pawns here, and the draw occurred like this. There we go, just rooks on the board. If we go back to that initial position, so black has just played the pawn to e5, and here instead of exchanging, rook g8 is actually an excellent move. Well, I'm sure Sam realizes this now. This is all said with hindsight. So the rook is tied to defending the g-pawn, so it can't move up here, for example. It just rook takes pawn. And black is just in a very unpleasant defensive passive position. So there's a threat to take here. So, well, you could take, you can push on. But then let's say a4, and white will play king c4, king b3 and pawn to c4 and gradually break things open. If the pawn takes the pawn, then again white can try to make progress by just advancing king, a pawn, and potentially c4 as well, or maybe just pawn on c3 and king to b4, a5. White can gradually shuffle forward, and don't forget this f pawn as well is waiting in the wings to help matters as well. That pawn coming to f5 could be absolutely decisive, actually, now that I look at it again. Pawn to f5, and then the rook can shuffle this way. I think ultimately black is lost in this position, so a real missed opportunity for Sam, who, as I said, played an excellent opening and early middle game. Okay, let's move on. Game between Purun and Nakamura. Now, Hikaru had played quite a risky opening. and was really pushing hard to try and win this game. And I think that was his problem. I think he pushed too hard. So Nakamura with black, he's already advanced this G pawn, but he's got some pressure here. And here he took on E4. I think he should take on D4. And after this, okay, the pieces get exchanged. Now, white has a problem on the back rank, but that can be solved. H4 I like, actually. I don't think the queen should take, then white can invade. I mean, white definitely has compensation for the pawn here. But by the same token, I think black should also be all right, defending on the 7th rank. I mean, I think that would be kind of a logical result somehow, a draw in this game. But Nakamura pushed it. Clearly he wanted more. He saw his opponent. Now, Casper Piron is rated 26-12, so Nakamura is rated 150 points more. But you know, a 2600 player is a strong player, and he showed it. So Nakamura, I think, he's striving for more here. That's his character. But now, excellent play from white. H4. We've seen it so often. Using the good old H-pawn. Gives the king an escape square. And as we're about to see, it can be used for the attack as well. So the queen came back. Now if pawn takes pawn, black's a pawn up, but H5 is very, very unpleasant. That queen can potentially come in here. And certainly white will recover that pawn without any difficulty. And yeah, difficult position. Well, rather similar to the game actually. Queen d5 from Nakamura. H5. Pawn takes pawn. And rook takes. Good move if black plays for the 2 rooks against the queen. Well, this is just crushing. The queen just invades and takes the pawn, and then the h-pawn looks great. So queen f7. So now pawns are even. G4 protects that pawn. And black has a huge problem here. Once again, it's a situation where this f-pawn has advanced. It means that black has to defend along the 7th rank, but also has to watch out for invasions on g6 as well. White has a beautiful pawn structure on both sides of the board. So white's king completely safe, that lovely f-pawn, fixed on f2, protecting the king. And if this pawn drops, then you can see that's a beautiful protected pass pawn, and black is just in massive trouble here. It's a highly unpleasant position. Queen d3, potentially threatening to invade down the d file, but also of course queen g6. And now Nakamura breaks out, but it doesn't solve the problems, because now something nasty happens on this diagonal. So for example, if queen f6, well, white simply wins a pawn actually by going into this queen and pawn endgame. The king is protected here, so no perpetual check, and that pawn is rolling through. You can see that king doesn't have protection. There's no protection on the 7th rank from a pawn on f7. Makes life very hard in queen and pawn endgames or major piece endgames where checks can be absolutely fatal. So queen d4 check just played. The king went to h7, rook d8, threatening a mate here, and rook f8 is a decisive move. If pawn takes pawn, then queen d3, and once again just the king just cut to pieces on the diagonal. Nakamura tried queen c4, desperately going to an endgame, but this very simple play, winning a pawn, and actually this one is a goner as well, and white is left with this beautiful pawn structure. And well, White wrapped up this endgame very easily, actually. Nakamura had no defense. The game went on for another 15 odd moves, but White wrapped things up very soundly and very, very easily. So for Nakamura, I think basically he was guilty of overpressing. Played too hard for the win. What about top board? Well, we had Fabiano Caruana playing with black against Krzysztof Duda, the young star of the Polish team, 20 years old and playing superbly. In fact, Caruana outplayed him, and they reached this endgame, and Caruana will be kicking himself because this was another missed opportunity. He played bishop g4, and Duda managed to hang on in this rook and bishop versus rook endgame. Now it's a theoretical draw, and Duda defended perfectly, actually. Well, I'm not going to show you all 118 moves of this game. That's how long it went. Caruana tried very hard to win this, but he didn't get anywhere against this resolute defense. I'm just giving you a flavor of what happened in this endgame. The crucial thing is that White survives with a stalemate trick. I'm just going to get to that point just to show you what happens. Takes a bit of time, just bear with me. We'll get there in the end. But this is a theoretical draw, this particular position. And here we go. Let me show you this. Rook f2. And here's the stalemate trick. Rook g2 check, which just drives the king away. Obviously, bishop takes rook is stalemate, and the king goes back, and the rook goes away, and so on. Famous second rank defense, which has made life a lot easier for the rook in this rook and bishop versus rook endgame. Let me go back here, because Fabi missed a win incredibly in this position. Bishop e4 is the winning move. Now, I'm going to show you a line here that just one. I don't want to go into all the variations, but I want to show you a typical line, the typical strategy that one uses in this endgame to win. So White is waiting for the time being. I know there are other variations, but I want to show you something that's very typical here. So king e3, threatening a mate. So a check, and then rook f8. So this is the first important defensive position. If check, then the rook can just interpose. And if the black rook switches to try and give checkmate here, then the white rook comes to d8 and can interpose here. So that's the problem. So how does black get around this? Well, first of all, bishop g6. Okay, this looks rather unusual, but basically it's about controlling this square, and it actually puts white in a kind of Zugzwang here. So rook f6, and it seems as though the rook performs the same function here because it can still check and it can still come to the d file to interpose. Now bishop d3, so the threat is to play rook check, and in this case the bishop covers that square. So the rook gives a check and bishop e4 and then comes back again, so it can still interpose. Okay, so what's different? Let's have a look. What's different is that the rook is on the 6th rank. So now we switch. Threat, mate. So the rook goes to the d file to interpose. So far so good. And now this very important check that just disturbs white's defensive idea. So if king f1, then we have rook here and there's no defense. Watch, we need to be able to interpose here, but the bishop covers. That's the point. It covers the king, but also covers the crucial g6 square. So after this check, the white king is embarrassed. So let's go the other way. Rook g2 anyway. Well, comes this way. So the threat is to give mate. So the rook moving here has no effect at all because the king is on d1 and not e1. So the king comes across this way. Okay, so obviously if there's a check, then the king bounces out. So we give a check. Now the king can't go to b1 because of a discovered check, so it has to come back. And now rook c5. The threat is to play bishop f3 and then rook down and mate. So the king moves across so that the rook can interpose. And now the rook is in the perfect position. And bishop d5 blocks out the rook, prevents rook e6 check. And now the threat is rook mate. So for example, if the king goes this way, we give a check and mate. So that's what Fabi missed, but I think he'll be kicking himself because he has tremendous experience in this endgame. He chose bishop g4, but bishop e4 was the winning move. I think he was probably just fixated on that pawn and was thinking, okay, I've got to clear things up. I want to make sure I collect that pawn and then I'll go and try and hunt for a checkmate. But bishop e4 was actually a winning move straight away. In the other game, which was Wesley So against Radoslav Wojtaszek, Wojtaszek played excellently. It was a knight-off. Wesley had perhaps a slight advantage in endgame, and he pushed the whole way. But Wojtaszek, very experienced, and he held the draw. I'm not going to say comfortably, but he did what he had to do and held the draw in the end. So there we go. That meant that Poland defeated the USA by 2.5, 1.5, and they leapfrog into the lead going into round 10. 2 rounds to go. Leading scores: Poland 16 points, USA, China, Armenia and England, to my surprise, 15 points, 1 behind. Good old England. That's a bit of a surprise. So pairings going into the penultimate round: China play Poland, Armenia play the USA, and Russia play England. Russia are a point behind England on 14 points. Hope you've enjoyed this coverage of the Olympiad. If you have, then, and you're not a subscriber, click on the subscribe button, free to subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, then do take a look at patreon.com PowerPlayChess. You'll see the link up there. If you want to support us financially, we'd be very grateful. Or if you want to just make a one-off payment on PayPal, then again, check out the link above. I look at another game from round 9 of the Olympiad, which caught my eye, which is just crazy. Nothing to do with the top teams, but it's just a great game. So do check out that game as well. The link is up there. Thanks for watching.